Ambassador Velix stood before the Grand Assembly Hall, his blue crystalline skin reflecting the soft lights from above. Hundreds of young students from dozens of different species sat in the floating chairs, their eyes fixed on him with curiosity. Today's lecture was about ancient myths and legends of the Galactic Council. And so, Velix said with a dismissive wave of his four-fingered hand, we come to perhaps the most ridiculous myth of all, the legend of the Deathworlders. A few students chittered with nervous laughter. Everyone had heard the stories as children. Monsters from impossible worlds, creatures that could survive anything, beings that felt no fear and knew only violence. According to the old tales, Velix continued, walking across the stage, there exist worlds so hostile, so incredibly dangerous, that any species evolving there would become unstoppable warriors. Planets with crushing gravity, poisonous atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and predators at every turn. The stories claim that any intelligent life from such places would be nearly impossible to kill, would heal from terrible wounds, and would possess an aggression unlike anything we civilized species could imagine. An Arcosian student in the front row raised her hand. Professor, why do we know these are just myths? Velix smiled kindly. Because, my dear student, life simply cannot evolve under such conditions. The galaxy has been explored for over 10,000 years. We have found hundreds of intelligent species. All of them, every single one, evolved on what we call garden worlds, planets with stable climates, manageable gravity, and relatively peaceful ecosystems. This is the only way intelligence can develop. A species cannot build civilization if it spends all its time simply trying to survive. The students nodded along. It made perfect sense. Velix had taught this same lecture for 20 years. The Deathworlder myths were fascinating from a cultural perspective, showing how ancient civilizations created stories to explain their fears, but they had no basis in reality. The universe is vast, but predictable, Velix concluded. Intelligence requires safety to flourish. Now, let us move on to more factual matters. A soft chime interrupted him. Velix's personal communicator was flashing. He frowned. He had set it to only interrupt for emergencies. I apologize, students. One moment. He tapped the device. The message was from the Council's First Contact Division. Velix felt his heart race with excitement. First contact situations were rare and always significant. He quickly dismissed the class and headed straight for the Council chambers. The massive circular room was already filled with representatives from across the galaxy. High Chancellor Mordex, a towering graven with gray skin and wise eyes, stood at the center podium. Ah, Ambassador Velix, Mordex said. Good, you're here. We have a situation. First contact? Velix asked eagerly. Yes. 3 days ago, we received a transmission from an unknown species. They call themselves humans, from a planet they name Earth. The signal came from the Outer Rim, a region we marked as explored but found no intelligent life. Velix felt a thrill run through him. A new species. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Have we established communication protocols? We have. The species seems eager to make contact. They've already learned our basic communication language from the cultural packages we sent. Quite quickly, actually. Their learning speed is impressive. Wonderful. When do we send the delegation? Mordex's expression darkened slightly. That's where things get complicated. Our science division has analyzed the planet these humans come from. The data is concerning. A holographic display appeared above the podium, showing a blue and green planet. It looked beautiful, actually. Swirling white clouds, vast oceans, green continents. This is Earth, Mordex said. Initial scans seemed promising, but deeper analysis revealed troubling details. The display zoomed in, showing various readouts and statistics. Velix began reading them. and his confidence slowly faded. "The planet's gravity is 1.4 times standard," the Chancellor explained. "Temperature variations range from -40 to +50 degrees in different regions. The atmosphere contains high levels of oxygen, which is volatile and supports rapid combustion. The planet experiences violent weather patterns: hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning storms of incredible intensity." Velix stared at the data. This can't be right. "There's more. The planet has over 8 million different species living on it. Many are predators, large predators. The oceans contain creatures that could swallow our ships. The land has hunting animals that work in coordinated packs. Even the plant life is sometimes poisonous or carnivorous." "And there are intelligent beings living there?" Velix whispered. "Not just living, thriving. They have cities, technology, art, and culture. They've split the atom. They've been to their moon. They're on the verge of faster-than-light travel on their own." The room fell silent. Every representative was thinking the same thing, the same impossible thing. A junior analyst, a nervous Pixen named Trill, spoke up from the back. "Chancellor, forgive me, but the initial descriptions of this planet, they match the old stories. The Death World are myths." "Nonsense," Velix said quickly, though his voice lacked confidence. "Those are children's stories." "Are they?" Mordex said quietly. "I pulled the ancient texts. The descriptions are remarkably similar. Hostile worlds, extreme conditions, species that adapt and survive against impossible odds." "But we've explored the galaxy for thousands of years," Velix protested. "We've never found anything like this." "We've explored less than 1% of the galaxy," Mordex replied, "and we've primarily focused on worlds similar to our own. Garden worlds. We avoid hostile planets because we cannot imagine life thriving there." Another representative, Commander Zaxxon of the Council Defense Fleet, leaned forward. "What do we know about the humans themselves? Their biology?" Mordex pulled up another display. "They are bipedal carbon-based life forms. They have an internal skeleton, surprising, given their planet's gravity. Their bone density is 3 times ours. They have redundant organs, aggressive immune systems, and remarkable healing capabilities. They can survive injuries that would kill most species." "Their psychology?" someone asked. "Difficult to assess from limited contact, but their history is violent. They have fought thousands of wars among themselves. Their entire evolutionary path has been shaped by competition, predation, and survival. They are persistence hunters. They chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion. They have forward-facing eyes, like predators." Velix felt cold despite the warm chamber. Everything about these humans sounded like the Death Worlder myths brought to life. "However," Mordex continued, "they have also shown remarkable cooperation, creativity, and curiosity. They have created beautiful art, complex philosophy, and they reached out to us peacefully. They want friendship, not conflict." "We hope," Zaxxon muttered. "We must respond appropriately," Mordex said firmly. "A delegation will visit Earth. We will conduct proper first contact protocols. We will evaluate if humanity is suitable for Council membership. Ambassador Velix, given your expertise in cultural mythology and your recent lecture on Death Worlders, I'm assigning you to lead this delegation." Velix's stomach dropped. Him? Visit a Death World? Meet actual Death Worlders? But he couldn't refuse such an honor. He bowed his head. "I accept, Chancellor." "Good. You leave in 2 days. Choose your team carefully." As the assembly dispersed, Velix stood staring at the holographic image of Earth, the beautiful blue planet that hid so much danger. Somewhere down there, humans were waiting. Humans who had conquered a world that should have killed them. Humans who might be the living proof that the ancient myths were real. For the first time in his long academic career, Velix questioned everything he thought he knew. Perhaps the universe was not as predictable as he believed. Perhaps intelligence could arise from chaos and danger. Perhaps the Death Worlders were not a myth after all. And if they were real, what did that mean for the galaxy? The Council ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Velix gripped his seat with all four hands. The turbulence was unlike anything he had experienced. Wind shook the vessel, rain hammered against the hull, lightning flashed across dark clouds. "This is normal weather?" asked Trill, the Pixan analyst, his fur standing on end with fear. "According to our scans, yes," replied the pilot, struggling with the controls. "The humans call this a light storm." A light storm. Velix tried to imagine what a heavy storm looked like and decided he didn't want to know. They landed at a place called Geneva, Switzerland. The moment the ship's door opened, Velix felt the gravity pull at him like a heavy blanket. Each step took effort. The air tasted strange. So much oxygen. His breathing felt quick and shallow. A group of humans waited for them on the landing platform. Velix studied them carefully. They looked soft, actually. Smooth skin, no armor plating, no claws or fangs visible. They stood upright in the heavy gravity as if it was nothing. They wore simple clothing and smiled with their teeth showing. Velix had read that showing teeth was a human gesture of friendliness, though it looked aggressive to him. "Welcome to Earth," said the lead human, a female with dark skin and kind eyes. "I am Secretary General Amara Okonkwo. We are honored by your visit." The translation devices worked perfectly. Velix bowed as much as the gravity allowed. "Thank you, Secretary General. I am Ambassador Velix of the Arcosian people, representing the Galactic Council." The humans led them to a building they called the United Nations headquarters. Inside, the gravity was just as crushing, but at least they could sit. The humans had prepared special chairs for their visitors, which helped somewhat. Over the next several days, the delegation learned about humanity. And with each passing hour, Velix's concerns grew. The humans showed them their history. Wars, constant, brutal wars, thousands of years of conflict, weapons that could kill millions, bombs that could destroy entire cities. They had nearly destroyed themselves several times. "Why do you fight so much?" Trill asked during one briefing. The human historian, an elderly man named Dr. Chen, looked sad. "Resources, territory, beliefs, fear. We are not proud of our violent history, but we have learned from it. We have worked hard to build peace among ourselves." "Have you succeeded?" Velix asked. "Mostly," Dr. Chen said. "We still have conflicts, but nothing like the old days. We have learned that cooperation is better than destruction. It took us a long time to understand this." They toured human cities. Millions of humans living together in massive structures that reached toward the sky. The cities were loud, crowded, and busy. Humans moved through them quickly, efficiently, constantly doing something. They never seemed to rest. "Don't your people get tired?" Velix asked his human guide, a young woman named Sarah. "Sure," Sarah said with a laugh. "But we sleep, then wake up and start again. There's always so much to do." "How many hours do you sleep?" "Oh, about 7 or 8. Velix felt shock. His people needed at least 14 hours of rest. "And the other 16 hours? Work, eat, socialize, hobbies, family time, life, you know." No, Velix thought. He didn't know. Humans operated at a pace that seemed superhuman to him. The humans showed them their food. Velix watched in horror as humans consumed things that should have killed them. Spicy peppers that contained capsaicin, a chemical weapon. Alcohol, literally poison, which they drank for fun. Caffeine, a stimulant drug, consumed daily. Raw fish, fermented vegetables, moldy cheese. "This doesn't harm you?" Velix asked, watching Secretary General Okonkwo eat something called Thai curry. "Harm us? This is delicious." She smiled. "Would you like to try?" "No, thank you," Velix said quickly. His scanners indicated the food would indeed kill him, but perhaps most disturbing was human behavior itself. They formed bonds with anything. Their delegation had brought a four-legged animal called a dog. The humans treated it like family. They petted it, talked to it, and seemed to love it deeply. "We call them companions," Sarah explained. "Dogs have been with us for over 30,000 years. We evolved together." "You domesticated a predator?" Felix asked, noting the dog's sharp teeth. "We became friends with them," Sarah corrected. "They help us, we help them. Humans bond with many animals, cats, horses, birds, even reptiles. Some people have bonded with wild animals they rescued." This was perhaps the strangest thing of all. Humans didn't just survive their death world, they loved it. They called it beautiful. They wrote poetry about its sunsets, music about its oceans, and art celebrating its mountains. They didn't see themselves as survivors of a hostile world. They saw themselves as children of a nurturing mother. During the second week of their visit, Felix was reviewing his notes in his quarters when an urgent message came through. It was from Chancellor Mordex, and his face looked grim. "Ambassador, we have a crisis. Return to Council space immediately." "What's happened?" Felix asked. "The Kresh Dominion has attacked. They've launched a massive military campaign across 3 sectors. They've been building their forces in secret for decades. We didn't see it coming." Felix felt his blood run cold. The Kresh were a warrior species from the northern quadrant. They had remained neutral but hostile toward the Council for generations. "How bad is it?" "Very bad. They've already taken Pelion 4 and Saxar. They're pushing toward the core worlds. Our defense fleets are falling back. Ambassador, our people aren't warriors. We've had peace for so long. We don't know how to fight a war like this." "I'll return immediately." "No," Mordex said. "First, inform the humans of the situation. They're not council members yet. They have no obligation to help. But perhaps they should know." Felix understood. Perhaps the Death Worlders could help. Perhaps they were humanity's only hope. The thought terrified and comforted him at the same time. He called for a meeting with Secretary General Okonkwo and explained the situation. He showed her the battle reports, the casualty numbers, the world's burning. Okonkwo watched in silence, her face unreadable. When the presentation ended, she sat back in her chair. "How can we help?" she asked simply. "You cannot," Felix said. "You are not council members. You have no treaties with us. This is not your war. People are dying." "Yes." "Children are being killed." "Yes." Okonkwo's eyes hardened. Felix saw something change in her expression, something ancient and dangerous. The predator behind the friendly smile. "Ambassador Felix," she said quietly. "Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting each other. We nearly destroyed ourselves. We finally learned to work together, to build peace on our world. Do you know what helped us achieve this?" "What?" "We found a common enemy. Not another nation, but suffering itself. Hunger, disease, ignorance. We learned that the only fight worth having is the fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is what made us finally put down our weapons against each other." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "You say this is not our war, you're right. But those are people out there dying. Species that chose peace being slaughtered by those who chose violence. That makes it exactly our war." "Your people may not agree," Felix said. "Perhaps. But I will give them the choice. And I know my species, Ambassador. When faced with bullies and tyrants, when innocent people need help, humans have a very bad habit of getting involved even when it's not smart to do so. We call it doing the right thing." She turned to face him. "I will call for a vote in the United Nations. I cannot promise the outcome, but I think I know what they will choose." 3 days later, Earth's government voted. It was close. Many argued for staying out of alien affairs. But the majority, a slim majority, voted to intervene. The message was sent to council space. Humanity is coming. Hold on. Velix read the message and felt tears in his eyes. These death-worlders, these creatures from an impossible world, were choosing to fight for people they had never met. Not because they had to, but because it was right. The ancient myths had gotten one thing wrong. Death-worlders weren't monsters. They were something far more dangerous to those who threatened the innocent. They were heroes. The debate in the United Nations lasted 3 days. Ambassador Velix watched from the visitors' gallery as human representatives from every nation on Earth argued passionately about whether to join the war. "We have no responsibility to alien civilizations," argued the delegate from a country called Russia. He was a stern man with gray hair. "Our first duty is to our own people. We barely achieved peace on Earth. Why should we risk our children in someone else's war?" The delegate from Japan, a small woman with fierce eyes, stood up. "Because we know what it means to suffer in war. Because we remember when others stood by and did nothing. Because if we have the power to help and choose not to, what does that say about who we are?" "It says we are wise," replied the Brazilian delegate. "We have families. We have barely begun to explore our own solar system. We know nothing about galactic politics. This could be a trap." "A trap?" The American delegate shook his head. "We've seen the footage. Entire cities burning. Civilians running for their lives. Those are real people dying out there. When did we become the kind of species that turns away from that? When did we become the kind of species that rushes into every fight?" The Russian delegate countered. "We've spent 10,000 years fighting. Maybe it's time we learn to mind our own business." The Indian delegate stood. She was old, with white hair and a gentle voice, but her words carried weight. "I have lived through war. I have seen my city bombed. I have lost family to violence. I understand the fear of fighting, but I also understand the cost of silence. When good people do nothing, evil wins. It's that simple." Secretary General Okonkwo let them argue. This was how human democracy worked. Every voice heard, every opinion respected. But finally, she called for order. "We will vote," she said. "Each nation will decide. But first, I want to show you something." The main screen lit up. It showed a transmission from the war zone. A Pelion civilian, a species that looked like small blue mammals, was carrying her child through burning streets. Council defense forces were evacuating the planet. The mother was crying, holding her child tight, trying to shield it from the smoke and fire. The child looked at the camera with large, terrified eyes. It could have been any human child. Any innocent child, anywhere in the universe. "This is what we are voting on," Okonkwo said quietly. "Not politics, not treaties, not strategic advantages. We are voting on whether we help her, whether we stand between her child and those who want to hurt them. That is the only question that matters." The room fell silent. "Vote," Okonkwo said. The tally came in slowly. Some nations voted no immediately. Others debated among themselves. Hour after hour passed. Velix watched the numbers climb. It was close, so terrifyingly close. Finally, the result appeared, 54% in favor of intervention. Humanity would go to war. But not everyone was happy. The chamber erupted in arguments again. The Chinese delegate stood and spoke over the noise. "If we do this, we do it properly, not half measures. If human soldiers are going to die for this cause, we commit everything. Full military mobilization, every nation contributes. We fight as one species, or we don't fight at all." To Velix's surprise, even those who voted against intervention nodded at this. Humans might disagree about whether to fight, but once the decision was made, they united. It was remarkable. Over the next week, Velix watched Earth transform. Every nation's military began preparing. Factories converted to war production. Volunteers lined up by the millions. Young humans, old humans, all wanting to help. They didn't seem excited. War was serious business, but they were determined. Velix met with the human military leaders. General Katsumi Reeves, a stern woman with gray hair and scars on her face, led the briefing. "Ambassador, you need to understand something," she said. "Human military doctrine is different from what you're used to. We've read the Council's combat reports. Your tactics are defensive, focused on preserving life and minimizing casualties. That's admirable, but it won't win this war." "What would you do differently?" Velix asked. "Everything," Reeves said bluntly. "The Kresh are predators. They respect strength and fear nothing. To beat them, we need to make them afraid. We need to show them that every attack costs more than they want to pay. We need to be more vicious than they are." "That sounds barbaric," said Commander Zaxxon, who had joined via hologram. "It is," Reeves agreed without shame. "War is barbaric. That's why we try to avoid it. But once you're in it, half measures just get more people killed. You fight to win, fast and hard, so it ends quicker." She pulled up tactical displays. "The Kresh use overwhelming force and fear. They're good at it. But they've never fought anyone who doesn't break. They've never faced an enemy that fights harder when things get bad. They've never met humans." "What are your plans?" Zaxxon asked. "We'll send our fleets to the front lines. Our ships aren't as advanced as yours, but they're tough. We build things to take damage. Our weapons are simpler but effective. And our troops—" She smiled coldly. "Our troops know how to fight in hell, because we come from hell." Velix felt a chill. The Death Worlder was showing through the professional soldier's face. Another general, an older man from China named General Wang, added to the briefing. "We've been studying the Kresh tactics. They rely on shock and awe. They expect their enemies to panic and retreat, but humans have a saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Pressure makes us harder, not softer." "Are your people afraid?" Velix asked. "Terrified," Reeves said honestly. "Everyone is scared before battle. Fear is normal. It's what you do with the fear that matters. We teach our soldiers to use it as fuel. Fear keeps you alert. Fear keeps you alive, but you don't let it control you." The Russian military commander, General Volkov, spoke up. "We also have something the Council species lack. We understand sacrifice. For thousands of years, humans have fought and died for their nations, their families, their beliefs. We know that some things are worth dying for. That's not suicidal thinking. It's understanding that sometimes the only way to protect what matters is to risk everything." Velix tried to understand. His people valued life above all else. The idea of willingly risking death seemed insane. But to humans, it was normal. Expected even. "When do you leave?" Zaxxon asked. "First fleet departs in 3 days," Reeves said. 10 more fleets will follow over the next 2 weeks. We're bringing 50,000 troops initially, with more if needed. Ships, fighters, support crews, medical teams, everything we have." 50,000, Zaxxon repeated. "That's a significant portion of your military." "That's just the first wave," Reeves corrected. "We have millions more ready if necessary. Every human nation has contributed. When we commit to something, we don't hold back." Velix returned to his quarters that night and wrote a message to Chancellor Mordex. His hand shook as he typed. "Chancellor, the humans are coming. They voted to help us, even though they gain nothing from it. They're preparing their military with efficiency I've never witnessed. But Chancellor, I must be honest. I'm frightened. Not of the Kresh. I'm frightened of what we've awakened. These humans are exactly what the old myths described. They're strong, aggressive, and unstoppable. But they're also kind, compassionate, and driven by a sense of justice that makes them rush into danger for strangers. They're going to fight for us. They're going to die for us. And they know it, and they're coming anyway. The Death Worlders are real, Chancellor. They've been real all along, waiting on their little blue planet, evolving through 10,000 years of warfare. And now they're coming to save us. I pray we're worthy of their sacrifice. I pray the Kresh are ready for what's about to hit them. Because I've seen these humans, and I've seen their determination. They don't know how to give up. They don't understand surrender. They simply keep going until they win or die. The Kresh wanted a war. The humans are going to give them one they'll never forget. He sent the message and looked out his window at the night sky of Earth. Somewhere up there, the war was raging, and soon, very soon, the Deathworlders would join the battle. The galaxy was about to change forever. The Kresh Warmaster, Kruvax, watched the approaching human fleet on his tactical display and felt something close to amusement. These newcomers had small ships, primitive weapons, and no experience in galactic warfare. They were rushing to their deaths. "They dare challenge the Kresh Dominion?" his second officer hissed. "These weak creatures from an unknown world?" "Let them come," Kruvax rumbled. "We will crush them quickly and use their defeat to terrify the Council further. Send 3 battle groups to intercept. Show these humans what real warriors look like." The Kresh were impressive in battle. Large, armored beings with 4 arms and thick scales. They had conquered a dozen worlds through sheer brutality. Their ships were powerful. Their weapons were devastating. They had never lost a major engagement. The first battle took place near the mining colony of Tarsus III. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel and immediately formed defensive positions around the colony. The Kresh charged forward, as they always did, expecting the enemy to scatter. The humans didn't scatter. Kruvax watched in surprise as the human ships held their position. They opened fire with everything they had. The weapons were crude but effective. Railguns throwing metal slugs at incredible speeds, missiles with nuclear warheads, energy weapons that weren't as refined as Kresh technology but hit hard enough. "They're standing and fighting," his tactical officer said with disbelief. "Don't they realize they're outgunned?" The Kresh ships pushed forward, taking hits but dealing more damage in return. 3 human ships were destroyed in the first 10 minutes. The Kresh expected the humans to retreat now. This was the pattern. Show strength, inflict casualties, and watch the enemy run. The humans moved forward instead. "What are they doing?" Kruvax growled. "They're losing ships and they advance?" A human destroyer, badly damaged with fires visible through hull breaches, rammed into a Kresh cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. The tactical officer stared at his screen. They killed themselves. Why would they do that?" More human ships closed in. The Kresh expected long-range combat. The humans wanted close quarters. They got right next to the Kresh vessels, where point defense systems couldn't track them properly, and fired everything at close range. Then something even stranger happened. Human soldiers in armored suits launched from their ships and attached themselves to the Kresh hulls. They were boarding. The Kresh had boarded enemy ships before, but no one had ever tried to board a Kresh ship. It was considered suicide. Inside the Kresh flagship, alarms blared. "Hull breaches on decks 7, 9, and 12. Enemy troops inside the ship." Kruvax couldn't believe it. "Send warriors to repel them. Let's see how these humans fight hand-to-hand." The Kresh warriors were trained from birth for close combat. Large, powerful, and armored. They rushed to meet the human boarders with confidence. That confidence lasted about 30 seconds. The humans fought like nothing the Kresh had ever seen. They were smaller, yes, but faster. They used tactics, working in teams, covering each other. When a Kresh warrior would charge forward to use its superior strength, human soldiers would hit it from 3 directions at once. They used their environment, turning corners into ambush points, using doors as bottlenecks. And they wouldn't stop. A human soldier took a claw strike that should have killed them, and they just kept fighting. They were resilient in a way that seemed impossible. Their armor helped, but it was more than that. They simply refused to give up. "Deck 9 is lost," the report came. "They've taken engineering. They're heading for the reactor." "All warriors to engineering," Kruvax ordered. "Stop them!" But the humans had already planted explosives. They fought their way back to their boarding craft, taking heavy casualties but completing their mission. The Kresh flagship's reactor went critical. Kruvax barely escaped before the ship exploded. The Battle of Tarsus III ended in a draw. Both sides lost ships. Both sides took casualties. But the Kresh had expected an easy victory, and instead, they got their first bloody nose in decades. News of the battle spread quickly. The Kresh commanders were concerned but not worried. One battle proved nothing. The humans had been lucky. The next engagement would be different. The next engagement was worse. At Helion Station, a major supply hub, General Katsumi Reeves led the human forces personally. The Kresh sent twice as many ships this time, determined to crush the humans decisively. Reeves implemented tactics the galaxy had never seen. Her ships fought in a damaged state that Council species would consider catastrophically unsafe. Hull breaches? Keep fighting. Life support failing? Put on suits and keep fighting. Reactor at critical levels? Push it harder and keep fighting. "All ships, this is Reeves." Her voice came over the communication channel. "Remember what we're here for. Those civilians need 12 more hours to evacuate. We give them 12 hours. I don't care what it takes." The Kresh attacked in waves. The human fleet absorbed punishment that should have destroyed them. Ships listed with massive damage but continued firing. When their main weapons failed, they used secondary weapons. When those failed, they rammed. The Kresh couldn't understand it. Why wouldn't these humans retreat? Why wouldn't they die? One human cruiser, the UNS Defiance, lost its engines and main power. It drifted in space, dead. The Kresh ignored it and moved on to other targets. Then the Defiance came back online on auxiliary power and shot a Kresh battleship in the back with its remaining missile tubes. "How are they still fighting?" Kruvax demanded, watching from his new flagship. "Their ship was destroyed." "Their definition of destroyed is different from ours," his tactical officer said quietly. "They fight until nothing is left." Reeves's flagship took critical damage. The bridge was exposed to space. She and her crew put on emergency suits and continued commanding from the damaged bridge. When a young officer asked if they should abandon ship, Reeves just laughed. "Abandon ship? We're not done yet. Engineering, I need whatever power you can give me. Weapons, target that battleship. All hands, we're not leaving until those civilians are safe." The battle raged for 14 hours. The humans held. Every single civilian was evacuated from Helion Station. When the last transport ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Reeves finally gave the order to retreat. Of the 20 human ships that started the battle, only 5 could jump under their own power. The rest had to be towed. But they had won, not by destroying the enemy, but by achieving their objective. The Kresh War Master reviewed the battle reports with growing unease. The humans had lost 15 ships, but completed their mission. They had traded casualties that any rational species would consider devastating, yet they celebrated it as a victory. Why? Because they saved the civilians. Because they accomplished what they set out to do. "These humans don't fight like us," Kruvax said slowly. "They don't fight to conquer. They fight to protect. That makes them more dangerous, not less." Over the next month, human forces fought in a dozen battles. They won some, lost others, but they always made the Kresh pay heavily for every victory. The Kresh advance slowed, then stalled. Word spread through the Kresh ranks. Stories of humans who wouldn't stay down, of ships that fought when they should be dead, of soldiers who kept coming even when wounded. The Kresh started calling humans the unkillable ones. For the first time in their military history, the Kresh learned to feel fear. Not fear of death. They were warriors who accepted death. They felt fear of fighting an enemy that was crazier than they were. An enemy that didn't follow the rules. An enemy that turned every battle into something personal. In one engagement, a Kresh commander killed a human officer's entire squad. That human, a woman named Captain Maria Santos, hunted that specific commander across 3-star systems. She volunteered for every mission where he might appear. Finally, she cornered him on a damaged space station. The fight was brutal. She lost an arm but killed him anyway. When other humans found her, she was sitting in the wreckage, holding her severed arm and smiling. "He shouldn't have killed my friends," she said simply before passing out from blood loss. She survived and returned to duty 3 months later with a prosthetic arm. Stories like that spread. The Kresh realized they weren't just fighting soldiers. They were fighting people who took every loss personally, who never forgot, who never forgave, and who never, ever stopped coming. The Deathworlder myths suddenly made terrible sense. These weren't stories about monsters. They were warnings about fighting a species that survived by never giving up, a species that evolved on a world so harsh that anything less than absolute determination meant death. Kruvax sat in his command chair and studied the latest tactical reports. The humans were everywhere now, dozens of fleets, thousands of soldiers, teaching the Council species how to fight, stiffening their resolve, turning a defensive war into a contest of wills, and the Kresh were losing that contest. Not because the humans were stronger, but because they simply wouldn't break. You couldn't defeat an enemy that refused to acknowledge defeat. For the first time in his long military career, Kruvax considered the possibility that the Kresh might lose this war. And it was all because of these strange, stubborn, impossible humans from Earth. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months into the war, everything changed. The Kresh Dominion made a strategic decision. If they couldn't break human will through battle, they would strike at something symbolic, something that would hurt the Council's morale so badly that even the humans couldn't fix it. They chose Arcos Prime, Ambassador Valix's homeworld, the capital of the Arcosian people, the cultural heart of the Galactic Council. If Arcos Prime fell, the Council's unity might shatter. The Kresh gathered their largest fleet ever assembled, 300 warships, elite troops, their best commanders. This wasn't just a battle, it was a statement. They would take Arcos Prime and prove that even with human help, the Council couldn't win. The warning came with only 8 hours before the Kresh fleet arrived. Panic spread across Arcos Prime. Millions tried to evacuate, but there wasn't time. The planet's defense fleet was small, meant for peacetime patrol, not a major assault. General Reeves was commanding human forces 3-star systems away when she received the distress call. She looked at the tactical map. Her fleet was damaged from the last engagement. Many ships needed repairs. Her crew was exhausted, and they were too far away to arrive before the Kresh attack began. "We can't make it in time," her executive officer said quietly. "Even at maximum speed, we'll be 4 hours late." Reeves stared at the map. 4 hours late meant arriving to find a burning planet. Millions dead. The Council's spirit broken. She thought about Valix, the nervous diplomat who had become her friend over these months. His family was down there. His people. His home. "Get me every human ship within range," she ordered. "I don't care if they're damaged. I don't care if they're supposed to be in repair dock. Every single ship." Within an hour, she had assembled a fleet, 18 human ships. Most were damaged. Several should have been decommissioned weeks ago. The UNS Defiance was there, still showing scorch marks from a dozen battles. The UNS Indomitable was missing half its armor plating. The UNS Valkyrie's bridge had been replaced with a temporary structure that looked like it might fall off if they turned too quickly. "This is suicide," the Russian captain of the Indomitable said over the communication channel. "We're in no shape to fight the entire Kresh fleet." "I know," Reeves replied. We're not going to fight them. We're going to delay them. 4 hours. That's all we need to give. 4 hours for reinforcements to arrive. 4 hours for Arcos Prime to prepare defenses. 4 hours for those people down there to have a chance. 4 hours against 300 ships, the Japanese captain of the Akagi said. Then she laughed. Well, why not? We've done stupider things. All ships, maximum speed to Arcos Prime, Reeves commanded. Push your reactors past safety limits. I don't care if the engineers cry. We're not arriving late to this one. The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, their engines burning hotter than they should. Some ships literally shook apart from the stress. 2 didn't make it, their reactors failing. But 16 ships arrived at Arcos Prime just as the Kresh fleet emerged from their jump. Velix stood in his home, holding his daughter, watching the sky. He knew the Kresh were coming. He had made peace with death. He only hoped it would be quick for his child. Then his communication device buzzed. It was General Reeves. Ambassador, get to a shelter. Now. We're here, and we're buying you time. You can't be here, Velix whispered. You were too far away. We broke a few laws of physics getting here. Don't waste it. Get your people to safety. We'll handle this. Velix watched through his window as 16 human ships positioned themselves between the planet and 300 Kresh warships. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing he had ever seen. They were going to die for his people. They knew it, and they came anyway. The Kresh commander, War Master Kruvax himself, studied the human formation and felt something like respect. These humans had to know this was hopeless. 16 ships against 300. But they weren't running. Give them one chance, Kruvax ordered. Send a message. Tell them to withdraw. They fought well. They don't need to die here. The message was sent. Reeves's response came back immediately. Negative. This is our line. You don't cross it. So be it, Kruvax said sadly. Attack. What followed was the longest 4 hours in galactic history. The humans didn't try to win. They couldn't. Instead, they made every meter of space cost the Kresh time and blood. They scattered their ships, forcing the Kresh to split their fleet to chase them. When caught, human ships would ram rather than be destroyed uselessly. They set traps, using debris fields and asteroid clusters. The UNS Defiance, already damaged before the battle began, took on 5 Kresh battleships alone. It lasted 40 minutes. When it finally exploded, it took 2 Kresh ships with it. The UNS Valkyrie's temporary bridge was destroyed in the first engagement. The crew commanded the ship from engineering, using backup systems and shouting orders through damaged communication lines. They fought for 90 minutes before being overwhelmed. Reeves's flagship, the UNS Humanity, became the focus of the Kresh attack. They wanted to kill the human commander to break morale, but Reeves kept fighting, kept moving, kept making them chase her through the orbital space around Arcos Prime. On the ground, Velix and millions of Arcosians watched the battle in the sky. Human ships burning, human ships dying, human ships buying time with their lives. Children who had grown up in peace watched the sacrifice and cried. Adults who had never understood violence suddenly understood everything. 3 hours and 47 minutes into the battle, only 3 human ships remained functional. The UNS Humanity, badly damaged, the UNS Indomitable, down to emergency power, and the UNS Akagi, missing most of its weapons. Reeves, the Russian captain said, "It's been an honor." "Not over yet," Reeves replied, though she knew the end was close. The Kresh were forming up for a final attack. There was no escape. Then a miracle happened. Actually, not a miracle. Reinforcements. The Council fleet arrived, 20 human ships that had pushed their engines even harder than Reeves's fleet. 50 Council ships, led by Commander Zaxxon himself. And behind them, more ships jumping in every minute. General Reeves, Zaxxon's voice came over the channel. We're here. You can pull back now. Negative, Reeves said. We finish this. The tide of battle turned. Fresh ships against a Kresh fleet that had been fighting for 4 hours. Human ships that were angry about their fallen comrades. Council ships that had learned from human tactics and human determination. The Battle of Arcos Prime raged for another 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt after the reinforcements arrived. The Kresh fleet broke. For the first time in their history, they retreated. They had paid a terrible price for nothing. Arcos Prime still stood. Of the original 16 human ships that arrived first, only the UNS Humanity survived, and it was barely recognizable. 14 ships destroyed, thousands of human lives lost, but millions of Arcosians saved. Velix stood in the ruins of his capital city and looked up at the damaged human flagship in orbit. He carried his daughter, who was alive because humans had chosen to die for her. Around him, Arcosians were gathering, all looking at the sky, at that broken ship that had stood between them and death. Someone started a chant. Human! 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 It spread through the crowd, millions of voices calling out the name of their saviors. Days later, a ceremony was held on Arcos Prime. Ambassador Velix, standing before the Galactic Council, presented General Reeves with the highest honor his people could give. The Crystal of Eternal Gratitude, only awarded twice before in Arcosian history. Reeves accepted with tears in her eyes. She read the names of every human who died defending Arcos Prime. It took 20 minutes. The council listened in silence. We don't see ourselves as heroes, Reeves said when she finished. We did what anyone should do when innocent people are threatened. We stood in the way. That's all. That's what humans do. That's what we've always done, since we lived in caves and fought predators with rocks. We protect the pack. And now, the pack is bigger. It includes all of you. Chancellor Mordex stood and addressed the council. For thousands of years, we told stories about Deathworlders, monsters from impossible worlds, creatures to fear. We were right about one thing. Deathworlders are real. Humanity proves it. But we were wrong about everything else. He gestured to the human delegation. They're not monsters. They're protectors. Forged in a crucible of hardship that we can barely imagine, made strong by struggle, made determined by survival, and made compassionate by understanding suffering. The Deathworlder myths were warning us about the wrong thing. We shouldn't fear them attacking us. We should fear not having them on our side. The council voted unanimously. Humanity was granted full membership. But more than that, they were recognized as guardians of the peace, protectors of the weak, the shield of the galaxy. The war continued for another year, but the Kresh never recovered from the Battle of Arcos Prime. Their advance stopped. Slowly, painfully, they were pushed back. Eventually, they sued for peace. The terms were harsh but fair. They would never threaten the council again. 10 years later, Ambassador Velix stood before a new group of students. His daughter sat in the front row, now a young adult, studying to be a diplomat like her father. Today's lecture, Velix said, is about the Deathworlder myths. For thousands of years, we believed these stories were warnings about monsters. We were wrong. They were prophecies. Prophecies about the day we would need them most. He pulled up an image of Earth, that beautiful blue planet that seemed so peaceful from space. Humanity comes from a world we call a death world, a planet so hostile that every day is survival. They evolved through struggle, through violence, through hardship that would have destroyed any of us. And what did this make them? Did it make them cruel? Did it make them monsters? He shook his head. No. It made them understand the value of life. It made them cherish peace because they know the cost of war. It made them willing to sacrifice for others because they understand suffering. The death world didn't create monsters. It created heroes. A student raised her hand. "Professor, do humans still fight?" "Oh yes," Velix said with a smile. "Humans will always fight. But now they fight for us. They fight beside us. They teach us that true strength isn't the ability to harm others. It's the willingness to risk everything to protect them." He looked at his daughter, who smiled back at him. She was alive because humans had stood between her and death. Millions of beings across the galaxy were alive for the same reason. "The Death Worlders are real," Velix concluded. "They walk among us. They serve with us. And we are blessed beyond measure to call them friends. The galaxy is safer because humanity entered the battle. And we must never forget what they taught us, that the strongest shields are forged in the hottest fires, that the best protectors are those who know what it means to suffer, and that sometimes the things we fear most are exactly what we need most." The class ended. Students filed out. Velix's daughter approached him. "Dad, I've decided. I want to apply to Earth's military academy. They accept alien students now. I want to learn from them. I want to be like them." Velix hugged his daughter. "They would be honored to teach you, and I'm honored to have a daughter brave enough to walk in their footsteps." Outside, the sky of Arcos Prime was peaceful. In orbit, human and council ships patrolled together, protecting the innocent, standing watch, ready to fight if needed, but hoping they never had to. The Death Worlders had entered the battle, and they had changed the galaxy forever. Not through conquest, but through sacrifice. Not through fear, but through hope. The myth was real. And the galaxy was better for it.